Sam, tell me about the early years of Sam Stitt.
So the early years is, I was born in Sturgis, Michigan. Then we moved to Hesperia, and I grew up in Hesperia. I went through K through 12th grade in Hesperia, and worked with my dad, family business. All that time during the summers, we were always gone during the summer months.
Okay.
Working on timber frame barns. We're multi-generation in the timber frame barn business. Yeah, when we got into middle school, I remember I missed like 30 days a year because I was working. And I remember there was a secretary at the school that said, "Hey, you're going to go to juvie, and your mom and dad are going to jail." And I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I went back and told my dad that, and he went to the school. He lit him up a little bit, secretary and the principal, and never had an issue after that. But I got to tell you, my dad taught me a phenomenal work ethic. How to work from sun up to sundown, get the job done. Yeah. And I learned a lot from my dad.
Gotcha. And use of barns, it's appropriate here, and we'll talk about this later, but there's a beautiful barn that you have resurrected. And it's a 2020, I believe, Barn of the Year here in the state of Michigan, but we'll talk about that later. But I want to make sure we just touch on this because we are in the Heritage Wedding Barn, correct? Yes. Yeah, right here in Hart. And it's an amazing place there. So what happened after high school?
Actually, during high school. I signed up for the military when I was 17. Okay. So between my junior and senior year, that's when I enlisted in the military. And I thought that was a vacation from working for my dad. So I enjoyed that, getting out of the house. And after I graduated from high school, I went to college. Went through building construction program, construction management at Ferris State University. So I did 4 years there.
Gotcha. Let's back up. What branch of military did you enlist in?
I enlisted in the Army.
Okay.
Started out in the Army National Guard.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. So then let's jump back over to Ferris State. Good time at Ferris? Have a lot of fun? Learn a lot?
So I learned a lot. I commuted back and forth because I didn't have a lot of money. And it's not like the GI Bill paid a lot. So whatever I made in the summer months is what I started out the season at Ferris with. And then usually when term was up at the end of the school year, I didn't have any money in my account, so I go back to work again.
That's how you did that?
That's how I did it. Yeah.
And then graduated with little debt then by doing that.
Zero debt.
Zero debt.
Zero
debt. That's impressive. That's
work
like really
and go
impressive.
To school.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Good job. What year did you graduate college?
Graduated in 95.
95? Okay. You enjoy your time at Hesperia with the Panthers?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's not like I was in school too much. No. Yeah. So I wasn't very athletic. I worked with my dad. I never took wood shop. Never took home ec. I took accounting 1 and 2, typing class, stuff like that, chemistry class. But I always worked with my dad. So I literally missed 30 days a year. I remember my senior year, Mr. Woods came up to me at the end of the school season. Everybody's getting these awards. And they gave out the award for somebody who didn't miss any school at all. And he's like, "That's not going to you, is it?" Nope. Yeah, appropriate name, Mr. Wood, and you've worked with Wood your whole life. Right. A little play on words there. I like that. Okay, so what happened after college? So after college, I'm still in the military. Yeah. And I get a job at Chrisman Constructors down in Lansing and working concrete. It's a concrete company for one of the largest construction management companies in the state, actually. Yeah. So I did that for about 8 months. We lived in the city. I hated living in the city. And then I got the opportunity to go to Germany for a few months. So I took that opportunity and I was married. So 94, my wife and I got married. Okay. I'm going to back up on that. That's fine. So our first date was February 21st, 1990. And on our first date, we're supposed to go to a youth group event. And instead of going to the youth group event, because we were there early, I took her up flying. Her parents didn't know that I was a pilot. She was 16, I was 17.
I didn't know you were a pilot.
That was our first date.
Wow, that's not many people can pull that off. That's impressive. That's another thing that's impressive. Wow, it's no kidding. Yeah. So when did you? I want to talk about that for a minute because that doesn't happen.
Right.
So when did you start to get your pilot's license?
When I was 15, I studied the booklet. I basically memorized it. And I went down to take the test. My dad, I don't think he thought I would pass the test. And I passed it the first time. Most guys don't pass it the first time. And I passed it the first time. I soloed on my 16th birthday. I got my license on my 17th birthday. Yeah, so January 28th, I got my license. February 21st, I took my wife up flying, and we were dating at the time.
Did you fly out of Fremont or a little grass strip somewhere?
Yeah, flew out of Fremont.
Flew out of Fremont.
Yep.
Gotcha. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You get an attaboy for that. That's like really cool. So my family all flies, and my nephew is a pilot. He's a captain for Southwest.
Oh, nice.
Airlines. So my dad flew, and my 4 other brothers flew. I'm the only one that didn't learn how to fly because when I was coming through, A, it was 2 things. It was becoming more expensive, and B, I probably would have done something silly.
Yeah.
And would have paid for it, you know.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be a pilot in the military.
Did you? Okay.
But because I don't have 20/20 vision at that time, I couldn't be a pilot. So I became a heavy equipment operator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I got one more question about, like, when you had that date with your wife, was that like a little Cessna? Like
That was
17?
a Cherokee 140.
The Cherokee 140.
Yep.
Nice plane.
Yeah, so low wings.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's a first. That is a first. So yeah, so okay, we're gonna jump back out of that. So you couldn't become a pilot. You didn't have the 20/20. You went into heavy equipment operating.
Right.
Where did you start? Where did you first start doing that at?
I started that at Montague, Michigan.
Yeah.
With the 1436 Engineer Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you running? Did you have any running everything or just specific things?
Grader. I love the grader.
Okay.
Dozer, grader.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 main pieces of equipment that I love to run. Yep.
That is cool. You like you like doing things with your hands.
I do. I do. Actually, when I was going through Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for heavy equipment training, usually I'd sit on the picnic bench with the instructor, and when somebody did the washboard effect, because they didn't do a smooth blade, he said, "Sam, go out there and straighten that out." So I'd get out there and straighten it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you have basic training at?
No, basic training. I was the youngest one in basic training, 17. And I did that at Fort Dix, New Jersey, when Fort Dix was an active duty base.
Okay.
And then I go back there again. I'm jumping ahead. For my first deployment with the 1436 as a company commander, we go to Fort Dix as the mobilization station, but it's not an active duty base. Now it's a reserve base. And so I'm trying to figure out the barracks that I was in. It's actually like a minimum security prison.
No kidding.
Yeah.
They must have knew you were from Hesperia.
Right, right.
Yeah, right. So you were a commander?
Yes.
How old were you at that point?
At that point, that was my second company command. And that would have been 2004 when I took over command of the unit. So I've had 5.5 years of command time, which is unheard of. Usually you get one command opportunity and then you're done and you go to battalion staff. I had a command, went to battalion staff, and then the unit was deploying to Iraq, and they said, "Hey, Sam, will you take over for this commander that's there?" And I said, "Absolutely." I love command time. I love the military. I love equipment. I love what we were doing. So, yeah.
When was you talked about your first deployment? When did that happen?
First deployment, we were in Iraq, January 2005 through December 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, I served 25 years in the military. I have 33 months boots on the ground between Iraq and Afghanistan. 2 years in Iraq and close to a year in Afghanistan.
My goodness, that's a while.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Was it all then as the equipment operator and command operator for equipment?
So the first deployment, I was in charge of 163 troops. We had 3 line platoons. We had a equipment or maintenance platoon, and we were based out of Balad, Iraq, and we were all over up and down the east side of Iraq, working on the roads, working on entry control points, working on berms around bases. So we've seen a lot outside the perimeter.
Gotcha.
Second deployment, more to the story, but I reassigned to the military police. So second deployment, I went over as an aide de camp, but I was never an aide de camp.
What is that?
That's you help the general officer out.
Okay.
So on my orders, I'm an aide de camp, but I work for Colonel Saunders at the Baghdad Police College, which was in the red zone every day, which is right next to Sadr City. We based out of Fob Shield. Ministry of Interior is right above us, and Martyrs Monument was across the way. Yeah, so that was right in the red zone area.
My goodness.
Yep, but they used my engineering skills because of the construction projects they were doing. And then the third deployment, we were in Afghanistan, and I was in charge of detainee operations with the 46th Military Police Command, based out of Lansing, but then I spent some time under Task Force 435. We're all under Task Force 435, doing field detention site visits to make sure everybody is up to the Geneva Convention.
Okay. We'll politely call it visits.
Right.
Yeah. Got any good stories out of that you want to talk about or not during your times and your deployments?
I got a lot of stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to go there neither.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 years boots on the ground overseas.
33 months boots on the ground between Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay.
I had 5.5 years of company command
That's
time
where the
between
5 years
two
came
units.
in.
Right.
Yeah. So during that time, you were married. All three, you were married that whole time.
Right.
Did you have children at that time?
Yes. So the first deployment, we had 3 kids. The last deployment, we had 4 at that time. Yeah. So our oldest, Maverick, he's going to be 28 here shortly. He's married. We have a grandbaby, 1 grandbaby. And then Samuel, he's the second oldest. He's married, lives in Fremont. And then, and both of those guys are Marines.
Okay.
One's still in the Marine Corps. And Mackenzie, she's married, just completed nursing school at Davenport. Just got pinned on Saturday.
Nice.
And then our youngest, Maxwell, he's graduated from Hart High School, but he's a worker too. He gets up at 5 in the morning and actually goes to work at 5 at Valley City for a couple hours, goes to school for a few hours, and goes back to work.
Oh, driven.
He's a driven man like his dad.
Where does that come from? Where does that come from?
Right.
So tell me about your wife. We hit on your kids. Tell me about your wife. I know we just hit it briefly. Your first date, was on an airplane, but tell me more about that.
Yeah. So Jennifer and I dated for 4 years.
Okay.
When I went to boot camp, so we went on our first date February 21st, 1990. I signed up for the military to go into the Army March 8th, 1990.
Okay.
And I got a box of letters from her that we wrote back and forth, the old handwritten letters, which is pretty cool. I was just thumbing through those the other day. And so then, she's been a stay-at-home mom with the kids all the time while I was in the military. Yeah. Yeah.
How many years you married now?
Married 30, going on 31 here in June. Yeah.
Very cool.
And she's been with me the whole time through the thick and thin.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, and we also want to salute here Sherpa Leadership Group. They're the company that's helping produce all of this. So we want to thank Phil and Ariel, but we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, if you're a guy, especially 18 or older, we would love to have you at one of our ministries. So White Lake Men's Ministries, I do this with Pastor Craig Smith out of Whitehall. We are the first Saturday morning of every month in Whitehall at Hanson Hill Waterfront Grill. It's behind Bell's Furniture. 7 to 8, we're going to do our best to get you out of there at 8 a.m. so you can have the rest of your day to go do the things that you got to get done. The second Saturday of every month, we have Grant Men's Ministries. Grant will be 18 years old this May, and which is amazing. That's going to be 18 years. And we meet the second Saturday of every month, 7 to 8 a.m. Once again, we're going to get you out of there early so you can go on with your day. And we're just a group of guys that get together. Come as you are. Do not get dressed up. Please don't. Blue jeans, sweatshirt, a hat. Come as you are. That's how we are. We're just a bunch of guys that get together. We always have a speaker come in, they share their testimony or a story, how God has worked in their life so their walk with Jesus is easier. Love to have you. Please join us some Saturday, first Saturday, White Lake, second Saturday, Grant. And yeah, would love to have you there. Welcome back once again to Cal's Corner Ministries podcast. I'm here with the awesome Sam Stitt. Dude, you're a rock star, man. And you still got my head spinning. Your first date was with your wife in an airplane when I think you were 17 or 16?
17.
You're 17. That's a showstopper there. So that's really cool. That's really cool. Let's talk about, your 33 months of boots on the ground and your 3 deployments. When you came back from that, did you come back with many challenges, as many of the troops do that have come back from deployments like that?
Yeah, I did. One, I didn't know what the challenges were at the time. I didn't know how to process trauma, combat trauma at all. And one of the things, I was a very angry guy. So when I say that my wife and I went through the good, the bad, she went through the bad, my kids went through the bad section of my life too. And I just didn't know how to process the trauma. And it would come out in very angry outbursts. And so I got hooked up with the VA because, one, I could hardly walk. And part of that is I did a physical health assessment, and they said, hey, you need to see your doctor and get your back checked out, which my back's been an issue for my first deployment. And so I went to the doctor's office. When I went there, one, my wife had to take me because I couldn't even walk hardly. And I'm laying on the floor in the doctor's office at the VA. And then they call me in. I'm laying on his gurney. And he's like, what are you here for, Sam? I said, I can hardly walk. And I think I need to retire out of the military. So that started the process for my medical retirement out of the military. And with that, I got hooked up with the VA. And I said, hey, I got some anger issues. I recognize that. And not nice. I said, I need to deal with my anger. And so I went to a doctor at the VA. I remember his redheaded doctor. And he said, yeah, you need to take an anger management class. And I thought, the guy's supposed to fix me right now. And I wasn't happy. I never went back and seen him again. But I did get hooked up with a stress disorder treatment unit out of North Chicago. Okay. I went there for a couple iterations. And they not only talked about the combat trauma, but then they took me back to my childhood too. And I think for a lot of us, we don't know that we have childhood trauma. My dad, he grew up with a dad who was a part-time preacher, but he got the snot beat out of him.
Yeah.
And so he had trauma from his childhood. Then he goes to Vietnam, and then he has combat trauma. And then we didn't know what PTSD was at the time. So we're living with my dad with PTSD, kind of closed off to a lot of people. We don't know how to work through it. And then I'm a combat veteran as well, multiple deployments. And now I'm struggling with PTSD. And PTSD is just a lack of peace now that I know this. Suicide's all out spiritual warfare. And so when I went through the stress disorder treatment unit in North Chicago, they taught me a lot about the triggers that set things off for me, and how to calm down. And with that, after that, I went to Boulder Crest Retreat out in Virginia, which is like a secular piece for a week. And I learned transcendental meditation. I learned yoga, just to keep at peace. But it's different than kind of where I was brought up in the church. And so I'm just trying to figure out, what does that look like? And then I went through a thing called the Hero's Return in 2019. That flipped my world upside down. And actually, we had a group of veterans meeting in this barn right here for PTSD. And a Vietnam veteran said, hey, Sam, why don't you try this? And this was August of 2019. They had it in September. And I said, okay, I'll go. So September I went, not knowing what I was getting myself into. So I take my tent, I take my bivvy, because I'm thinking I'm going to sleep out in the woods, because I'm thinking it's going to be some junky pole barn on 900 acres. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I find out this is a multi-million-dollar facility, private lake, private trout pond. So I said, okay, I'll stay inside. on a queen bed. The doors are like 7 foot tall, and beautiful facility. And they had what they call the Heroes Return for veterans. And there was 12 of us that went through. And Wednesday night through Sunday, it flipped my world upside down to understand sonship and a relationship with Father God. Because I always thought God was way out here. And what I found is a lot of us struggle with dad trauma, whether he's physically, verbally, emotionally, or sexually abusive, or dads who aren't even there, they abandon you. And that's where a lot of hurt comes from at a younger age for us. So I had to start there, and then talked about combat trauma. And man, I felt a big peace after I left there. And before that, 2017, my wife and I moved over here to Shelby. We did live in Fremont. We moved over here and still running the business. Actually, 2017, I retired from the business. And 2017, when we moved over here, that's when we started a men's ministry right behind us here on a dirt floor.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that more. This barn and the behind me here, the dirt floor. We're going to talk about that more in that next segment. So, have you been able? You talked about going to the return. I've never gone through it, but I now know a lot of you guys who have gone through it, and I just hear just wonderful things about it. Tell us a little bit more about that ministry over there in Big Rapids.
Yeah, so that the ministry in Big Rapids, it's through the Road Ministry, and it's called The Return, and Heroes Return for veterans. And for veterans, it's $50. To go through it. For civilians, it's $450. But there's a guy that sponsors, or there's people that sponsor veterans to go through. So money is not an issue. It's just getting there for guys. And you learn about, you spend a day out in the woods, for one thing. And you don't really know what you're getting into. And I can't share everything with you. Because it is very sacred. But it's all about sonship with the Father, and it's all biblically based. It's all about a relationship with Jesus Christ. And it's about forgiving hurt done to you and hurt you've done to other people. And you learn a lot about forgiveness.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you been able to get back in touch with some of the guys in your other units? And maybe be able to say, hey, I have this event up here in West Michigan. Is that something that's happened, or is that you've thought about? Or
Yep. So I've talked to some guys about that. Actually, I just had one guy go through the event a few weeks ago. And actually, my father-in-law, he's a veteran too. He went through. It flipped their world upside down.
That sounds amazing. And I need to do it because some of the, Mitch, as we know, we all know who Mitch is, and Robert, and a lot of those guys have encouraged me at some point to do that. I was on our fire department for 20 years, so they said, come in under that first responder part of it. So
yeah, perfect. We'll see you next week.
Let's get healed up first. Yeah, I don't recommend having 3 surgeries in 5 months. It's not been good for me. I mean, it's all been good for me as far as getting my body healed from farming, but it's been a road. It's been a challenge, let me tell you. So so I'll tell you what, we're going to take was sports related, right? I mean, 30 years high school sports broadcaster. We're going to take a quick time out, and then we're going to come back to a very special segment 3 here on Cal's Corner Ministry podcast. So we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to our final segment here, segment 3 of Cal's Corner Ministries podcast. And Sam, we've just touched the Fighting Diamond here that you are a part of. And I want you to tell me and us and our viewers more about the Fighting Diamond.
Yeah, the Fighting Diamond actually started right here.
Okay.
And it started right here. None of the brick was here. The bar countertop wasn't here. This was a dirt floor when we started.
Nice.
So I had a guy a couple years before that. We were thinking about bringing another event up in this area. And he says, what do you have to work with? I said, nothing. He says, you got dirt. I said, okay, I got dirt.
Mm-hmm.
So then we actually started on dirt. So I put a blue tarp up on that timber frame post to that timber frame post.
Okay.
To that timber frame post to that one. On dirt, I had a propane heater in here. We had lawn chairs. One guy came with a blanket, and we were just doing books, like Not a Fan, just different books. And it's biblically based, trying to stay in the Bible too. But I really didn't know too much about the Bible at the time. And I didn't know how to apply the Bible to my life, God's Word. And so we started right here with 5 guys. And one was a first-generation Christian. The other guys grew up in a mainline denomination. And I said, so what? The first year we went through September to June, and after June we were done for the season. And I didn't even care to pick it back up. I really didn't. And Jordan, the guy that started it with me, said, hey, why don't we pick this back up again in the fall of 2018? I'm like, okay. So we start another book. And we get into the book, and I did one by Francis Chan, Letters to the Church. And I get through chapter 1, resistance from the mainstream denomination guys, chapter 2, chapter 3, got to chapter 6. I'm like, you guys don't even get it. And so the other guy who's a first-generation Christian said, so what are the metrics? What are the metrics for being a Christian? Saved, baptized, join the church. I'm like, that's it? That's all there is. So you go to church on Sunday, listen to a good TED Talk, and you throw some money in the plate, you sing some songs, and that's it. What are we doing the rest of the week? I didn't even know what discipleship was. So then that was 2018, and then we cut off for the year again, the summer months again. And that's when I got introduced to the Heroes Return up in Big Rapids. And that flipped my world upside down. And then I started talking to guys about the spiritual battlefield, which is what I'd like to show you, because a lot of guys don't even know they're on a spiritual battlefield. Like, who's on your team? Who's the enemy? What things do I need to get out of my life so I have a more intimate relationship with the Father? So I'd like to show you that over here on this other table.
And I'd love to see that.
Yeah, so come on over here, Cal.
Sam, I want you to tell us about the battlefield that you have laid out here. It's so beautiful. Just tell me and Phil and Ariel and our viewers, tell us how this works.
Yeah, so in the military, we do a sand table. So we need to know who the enemy is and who's on our team and where we're going, how we're getting from point A to point B. And there was one day in 2020 where I was looking at some fuel tanks, and I met this guy. And I gave him a business card, and he's like, Sam, what's all this about? Tell me about this. So I dropped the tailgate on my truck. And I threw some rocks on my tailgate. None of this writing was on there. I just threw the rocks on there. And I said, his name is John. I said, John, a lot of us start out right here with the Romans 1:20. Everybody sees the invisible qualities of God, and they're without excuse. This could be people who have been hurt by people in the church, whether they've been physically hurt in a church. I've been beat in a church. So I never tell anybody to go to church. I'll meet them where they're at.
Like Big B.
Like Big B Coffee.
It
doesn't matter. Big Apple Bagel up in Ludington's another one. I'll meet them where they're at. And then the next group is the Matthew 23 guys. These are the guys who go to church on Sunday for an hour and a half. And they could be the Pharisees, the hypocrites, the blind guides, because that's what Matthew 23 is all about. They look good on the outside, but there's nothing on the inside. So they're like knights in shining armor. They got no dings, dents, or scratches on them. And for a combat veteran like me, do you think I'm going to go into combat with somebody like that? Who's just playing the part? There's no way.
No, you don't want that.
So I'm not into superficiality. And that's really how the Fighting Diamonds started, because I just thought there was a lot of superficiality going on. But I didn't know how broken I was, because I was struggling with addictions. I was struggling with anger, pride, unforgiveness. I didn't know how to deal with them. So we call this guy the Matthew 18:1. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire and breaks against all sound judgment. In the Army, we call this guy the OTF guy, out there flopping. And the Marine Corps, they say, is the OF. He's off the program.
Gotcha.
OFP guy.
Yep, gotcha.
All right. So this guy right here is doing his own thing. He doesn't know how to neutralize the threats of sexual addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, He doesn't know how to neutralize these threats, or why he's angry, or the soul ties that he has, or pride, or unforgiveness, or idols in his life, or unholy vows. So these are all symptoms. And the symptoms, usually there's a root to why they're doing what they're doing. How do we get to the root? We can see that there's a symptom. We can see that there's probably a problem. But how do we get to the root and meet that guy where he's at? Because he's probably suffered from childhood trauma or combat trauma, and he doesn't know how to neutralize the threats, to understand a relationship with the Father.
Yeah.
So where's the guy to walk this Proverbs 18:1 guy to the cross? Because that's all we can do.
Yep.
We can plant seeds, we can water, but God does the growth. God knows the heart of man. I don't know your heart. You don't know my heart. God knows the heart. Who's that discipler to walk this guy to the cross of Christ to have a relationship? So the fighting diamond, which is this section right here, I tell guys sometimes you need to do the Matthew 11:28 principle, and that is we need to take a knee. And Christ says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke, take my teachings upon you," he says. What are his teachings? Think of the commandments.
Yeah.
You know, you got the guy in the center here, but then who's discipling this guy? This is the Apostle Paul. Who's discipling this guy? And then when he's learning something, who is he teaching that to? The Timothy.
Yeah. Love it.
And then you have the Barnabas and the Silas to the left and right. Those are the encouragers and the supporters. So now when he's walking with a team of brothers, because this is a fighting diamond, this is really a military term that we use. That's how we shoot, move, and communicate on the physical battlefield.
Okay.
Who's on the team on the spiritual battlefield? Because going to church is more than just listening to a nice TED Talk on Sunday, singing some songs and throwing money in the plate and then doing whatever you want at 12:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock the next Sunday.
Yeah.
It's more than that. Who's discipling guys? So I got irritated with, places that had making disciples in their bulletin or on their vans or whatever. How do we make disciples if nobody's teaching me how to be discipled? And that's what the fighting diamond's all about. Yep. So, and then after we take a knee, we learn what Christ wants us to do. Then we fulfill the Great Commission. Matthew 28:18-20 says, "With all authority in heaven, Christ has been given. Go," which is a command, "make disciples of all nations, peoples, and cultures, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit." He then says in verse 20, "teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you." Whoa, so what has he commanded us to do?
Go make disciples.
Go make disciples. Yeah. Blessed are those who do his commandments in Revelation 22:14.
Okay.
Even Solomon says it's the whole duty of man to know his commandments. So the holy commandments, most people in the church don't even know the holy commandments. I am the Lord your God, have no other gods before me. Don't have any idols. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. That's preserving your relationship with the Father.
Yeah.
Honor your father and mother. Don't commit adultery. Don't murder. Don't steal. Don't lie, and don't covet. Those are the 10 commandments. And that's the whole duty of man. And he finishes it up in Revelation and says the same thing. Blessed are those who do his commandments. Some manuscripts say wash your robes. And Christ talks about it a lot in John 14 and John 15. You want to abide in me and abide in the Father? You need to know the commandments.
That I've never seen it laid out like this. I'm 66. I've never seen it laid out like this. I got to ask a question.
Yes.
The spike, the 3 spikes. So there's probably, everybody will say, oh, that's the 3 spikes that were driven into Christ on the cross. Any other meaning with this?
I was just reading in Daniel 12, 7, I believe it's 7. Maybe it's 14. So don't quote me. I can look in the Bible. But I was just reading in Daniel 12 where it talks about his right hand was up, his left hand was up, and then he said, "It is finished." That's in Daniel.
Yeah. That was in Daniel.
That was in Daniel. And that tied right in when I was reading this 2 days ago, and I've just been meditating on this the last couple of days.
Yeah.
That's in John 19:30, where Christ says it is finished. And he was on the cross, 3 nails in him, with his hands and his feet.
As we wrap up here today with Sam Stitt, and this is glorious. This is just unbelievable. I've never seen, and I've never. I'll get this scratch that. That's the difference with radio. You said it, you're saying it. You're not editing it.
Start from the top. Go.
All right, as we wrap up here today with Sam, and this has just been awesome. It's been amazing. I have learned so much about you, and just this. This is just incredible. So we're going to do a little bit of a call to action here. So you're saying, if you live in West Michigan, where can I go get involved at? So if you're living like near Grand Rapids area or along the lake shore, a couple different places. If you're along the lake shore, we have White Lake Men's Ministry, which meets on the first Saturday morning of every month in Whitehall at Hanson Hill Waterfront Grill. Grant Men's Ministry, which meets on the second Saturday morning of every month in Grant, Michigan. We meet at the Grant Depot. And Sam, I know you're involved with some ministries, multiple ministries up here now in the Hart Shelby Lakeshore area. So tell us about those, where guys can go get connected at.
Yeah, I like to say that John 14:6, Jesus Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. It doesn't say a certain denomination. It doesn't say a certain translation of Scripture. It doesn't say a certain person. We are the church. The church is the ecclesia in the Greek. And that is the gathering of men, the gathering and assembly of believers, called out ones. And so what I challenge guys, in the military, I talked about a physical health assessment when I couldn't walk, that I had to figure out what was going on. So I challenge guys to do a spiritual health assessment. Let's flush some of this stuff out. We might not even know it's an issue. With that, we got Set Free Ministries that we partner with. We do freedom appointments right here at the Fighting Diamond, the Patriot Barn on the corner. So there's another barn adjacent to this. 813 South 32nd Avenue, Shelby Road, or 32nd Avenue, Shelby, Michigan. And we do Heroes Return events up in Big Rapids, and return events for civilians. So it's both civilian and military that we work with. And then we do forge events. You'll see a couple axes on the back shelf here where we've actually forged axes and knives. So we do events every year up in Barrington, and it's all Christ-centered. But the fightingdiamond.org, you can reach me there. You can reach me on my phone number too, 231-225-1808. Love to connect with you. We are the church, guys.
Yes, we are.
And we do base camp. We host base camps here in this barn. And the last event, we had 82 guys here. So there's food and beverages. And usually there's an average of 60 guys here. And we're also hosting once a month, third Monday of every month from 9 to 11, starting in May, Veterans Coffee and Donuts here to get veterans out and about and communicate with each other. And because we know that suicides are high in the veteran community. And we're trying to connect more with guys.
Awesome.
Take us home. Wrap us up.
Yeah, here we go. I tell you what, Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What a great morning.
Today.
What a great morning. I've learned so much more about you. And getting to see this is just amazing. Just blows my mind how you have this put together. So once again, we want to thank Sam for being our guest today. We want to thank Ariel and Phil here with Stripper Leadership Group. They're the ones that make all this happen, and the time that they take, and they're priceless to us. Just priceless. Appreciate them so much. So so have a great day. Get a hold of either Sam, myself, and would love to help you in any way that we can. God bless. We'll see you soon.